Now, this is George Washington is my hero. Since I decided to get into politics as an element, I've been reading a lot about Washington, and I was reading his farewell address, and I found this little gem, where he warned us about our federal government usurping from the states. He said of constitutional change management, if, in the opinion of people, the distribution or modification of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, let it be by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates. But let there be no change by usurpation. For through this, in one instance, may be the instrument of good. It is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. I was up at Newcastle. They were doing Delaware days. I think they stole my name. But while I was up there, I had a lively conversation with a young man from the Flowers campaign. And we were, Chip Flowers, he's running for treasurer against Tom Denise. You're in the house, right?
I just did call him.
Okay, so anyway. So now that I put a plug into the Democrat, some whole day against me. So we're having a conversation, and he was a young man, stars in his eyes and lofty goals, and God bless him. I think it was Churchill that said, if you're 20 years old and you're not a liberal, you have no heart. And if you're 40 and you still are, you have no brains. So anyway, as we're talking, I'm explaining, and I always have my copy of the Constitution on me, so I'm going through and I'm saying, but they just don't have the power to do this. They shouldn't be doing education at the federal government level. They shouldn't be restricting power at the federal government level. They shouldn't be regulating all this stuff at the federal government level. There's 18 enumerated powers and that's it. And he said, but don't you think we miss out on so many really good programs? He couldn't name one that I really liked, but I said, you know what, if that's the case, there's a change management process built in. Do the work. Don't be lazy. Let's get in there and get an amendment. The young man looked at me and he said, I just don't think we get the votes. I said, exactly. And this is where, instead of us making these decisions at the state level, it gets thrown over the wall in a lazy manner to the federal government. And we ended up with exactly what George Washington tried to warn us of, and that was usurpation by the federal government. I have 6 bills that I want to see introduced in my first term in Congress. I'm going to give those to you real quick. The first one is the Read the Bill Act. Everyone heard of that? I guess I want to explain that. Next one is One Subject at a Time Act.
Yes.
This is where no amendments that aren't germane to the subject of the bill at hand. The next one is the Right to Law Act. Now this one, the best way I've heard it said is, if you loan a car to a friend of yours, would you be upset if you just loaned it to someone else? Yeah. Well, we have, keep in mind, the word delegated. The powers that are given to the federal government are delegated to the federal government because we're bottom up. So we've delegated the powers, these 18 enumerated powers to the federal government, and we also delegated the power to write laws to enforce those powers. Well, what they've done is they've created these behemoth departments, DOE. And these departments now write regulations that act as laws. So the lawmaking has now come out of what? The legislature. And who's that fall under? The executive branch. Is that their job? No, absolutely not. Checks and balances, folks. Checks and balances. And this one goes on to restore checks and balances. Next one is the EPA. Well, I guess what EPA is? No, it's not that EPA. This one's the Enumerated Powers Act. Put your hands together for that. The Enumerated Powers Act says every new law that comes before the Congress, at the very top of it, it's got to say which of these 18 enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8 gives Congress the power, not the right, the power to pass that law. If it's not there, it's not there. The last two right there, the first one is the Fiscal Responsibility Act. What this one does is actually ties our salary to the budget. If we go over budget, our salary goes down by 5%.
Oh, man.
The next year we go over budget, our salary goes down by 5%. This continues on until we actually balance the budget, in which case it goes up 5%. Not past the original point, but just working our way back up. So as many years as we screw it up, as many years we got to make it right before we get paid. The last one is the Congressional Pension Removal Act. What we'll do is it'll take Congress out of the pension programs and only allow them to put it in the 401k programs. Now, I have said all along that Congress or politics is not a career path. So if it's not a career path, why would you get a pension? It should be just like everyone else. If you leave your job today, the only retirement funds you get to take with you is your 401k. Roll it over to your next job. Now, along with that comes repealing Obamacare. Now, there's a little bit amount of white blue shirts out here. I think Christine's going to get there before I do. So that being said, when Christine actually pushes that through before I show up in January, I'm going to be part of the supermajority that overrides that veto. The real issue in healthcare is tort reform and deregulation. As far as the economy goes, deregulation. That's the answer. We've got to get the government out of the economy for As Robert W. Crandall of the Brookings Institute pointed out, the economic lesson from the history of regulation is that regulation and competition are a bad emulsion. Once the conditions for competition exist, it is best for the regulators to abandon the field altogether. The answer to our fiscal problems is the Constitution, folks. I want you to say it with me. The Constitution is the solution. That's right, I brought this shirt. Yeah, thanks for it. Okay, so what I want you to know is I've taken the budget and I sat down with it and wasted a lot of time going through it. However, what I tried to do was figure out all the departments that actually fit within these 18 enumerated powers. Now keep in mind our government is spending $3.5 trillion this year. Let that sink in a little bit. $3.5 trillion. Anybody know how high a stack of $1,000 bills is to make $1 trillion? Those of you who were here last time I spoke, I remember. 68 miles high. That's $1 trillion. What I can figure out, constitutional spending totals somewhere in the neighborhood of about $840 billion out of the $3.5 trillion. So how do we get out of debt? Bam! Right there, the Constitution. If we get back to constitutional spending at our federal government level, there is no need for a $1.5 trillion deficit this year. The last thing I want to tell you is why I'm the right choice in November. First off, I am not beholden to a political party. A majority-minority whip. There won't be a majority-minority leader. There'll just be Brent and the citizens of Delaware.